Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's session on fundraising strategies for the future of using AI. My name is Debbie Hosley, and I'm your Chief Mission Advancement Officer here at Lutheran Services in America. This webinar is part of our Strength and Service series, which is laser focused on examining and tackling the unintended consequences and uncertainties in today's climate, all with the goal of helping move your organization forward. For those of you that joined us for part one of this webinar, I'm delighted to welcome back Nathan Chappell. And for those of you that missed it, well, you're in for a real treat. Nathan is the Senior Vice President of Donor Search AI, a company founded to revolutionize how nonprofits connect with donors by providing a premier donor intelligence and innovative fundraising solutions. He's a thought leader, a public speaker, an inventor, and award-winning author. Nathan is one of the world's foremost experts on the intersection between artificial intelligence and philanthropy. Nathan founded Fundraising AI. It's a global collaboration with a focus on data ethics, data equality, privacy, and security. He is also the co-author of the award-winning book, The Generosity Crisis, The Case for Radical Connection to Solve Humanity's Greatest Challenges. Nathan is a sought-after speaker, and we are very fortunate to have him join us today. We'll have plenty of time for questions, so please do enter your questions into the chat box as we go along. And so without further ado, please welcome to the Zoom stage, Nathan Chappell.
Great. Well, thanks, Debbie, and thanks everyone for joining. I guess I take it as I passed the test if you invited me back for a second round. I know first round was probably a little daunting, but I'm much less concerned with teaching people why they should use AI versus how they should use AI. And so having that first session by design being a bit more focused on responsible and beneficial AI was to really get people to think about, if I'm going to use these tools, how am I going to do this in a way that really supports humanity at large and the future of the philanthropic sector. So I am calling in just for the day from Vancouver, Canada, where I'm doing some consulting with BC Children's Hospital later on the same topic. So this is my favorite topic. I get really excited about just jumping in here and sharing, some AI tips and tricks. So what we're going to do today is actually fly through about half of our time just in some slides and kind of giving you a framework for the ROI of AI and some tips and tricks on generative AI specifically, and a little, just one slide on the difference between predictive and generative. But then I'm going to try something which I don't do a lot, which especially in Zoom, switch over and share my screen where we could do some live demos of a few different tools like ChatGPT. I've got Copilot up and a new tool called Notebook LM, which is pretty mind-blowing. I was just showing Debbie and Kim right before this call, and I saw their gasping with seeing how powerful this tool is. So that sounds like a good plan. Where I'm going to jump in. If not, I guess, hold your peace and we'll go from there. I'm on one screen today, so a little hard to see chat as well. So Kim or Debbie, feel free to interrupt me at any point and have me go back or something like that. So here we go. We're going to specifically talk more about generative AI tips and tricks. And thanks, Debbie, for mentioning fundraising AI. We had our global summit last week. We had 9,500 people virtually from over 100 countries. In fact, I think we had 120 something countries. It was an amazing outpouring of nonprofit professionals that are at all walks of life in their AI journey, their transformation journey, from people who never logged in and just logging in for the first time. I know there's at least one of those on this call, and then others that are much more advanced in their AI journey. We had an amazing community. So if you go to fundraising.ai, all of those videos with 40 different sessions with some of the best people in the world using AI for different aspects of their career and all in the nonprofit profession, that you can access all those for free. So we'll start kind of where we ended last year, probably, or last time, with this idea that you are on an AI transformation journey, just like digital transformation. When we learn to get off of the Dewey Decimal System into computers, we are on this journey that we have data and technology embedded into almost every walk of our life. That transformation had been ongoing for a while, but November 30th, 2022 was the date that it felt real for most people. That AI has been around since 1955, but really the last 10 to 15 years are really the more major advances of how big companies like Amazon and Google and Microsoft are using AI to drive their businesses forward. That's why Amazon's gotten really good at predicting what you might buy next, or Netflix is good at kind of weeding through the millions of titles that you might watch to give you a few that you're more likely to watch. But AI was not very accessible for quite a while. So November 30th, 2022, ChatGPT was released to the world. I remember the day very specifically. I had known about it for a while and had used some less attractive versions before. But when the little bar opened up on the screen and you could type something in like, write a poem about my dog having a picnic on the moon, it was kind of magical. And that is now almost 2 years old. I mean, 18 months or 19, 20 months, I guess, 20 months probably. And the progression of this technology has not been sequential. It's not been one, two, three. It's been exponential because AI is now training AI. So ChatGPT can code and it's training the new code and building the new code for the new GPT. So the acceleration of our advances are really, really quick. And it just speaks to the fact that GPT alone, which is just one, ChatGPT is just one company. It's like Coke or Pepsi or Aquafina versus Fiji. It's just one. They have over 200 million users, 100 million users weekly right now. So, I mean, this has just been this exponential growth and adoption of this technology. I think I might have shared this last time. I just highlight this again, that if you have anxiety around AI, you're not alone. That many of us, probably all of us, and hopefully all of us, have questions about, is this all good or is it all bad? Is it, how do I use it? How do I use it appropriately? Is it going to take my job or is it going to augment my job? And, am I supposed to be scared or afraid of it? These are all very natural human questions, and we're going through lots of change. Humans are very good at adapting to change. We've adapted, if we had not, we'd still be on steam power running our factories and our cars running on steam power. We're really good at adapting to change, but we also are now adapting to change faster than what humans are used to. And so I think these questions become more profound. And I think the questions that I wrestle with are, while there's tremendous value, and I'm going to share with you lots of them, and how nonprofits must use AI to be able to serve their missions more effectively, because fundraising is getting harder and harder. Your missions are becoming more and more important. AI can absolutely help you amplify your mission, and you must use it, but you must use it in a way that's responsible. Because there are people that will take advantage of any technology and use it for not good purposes as well. So AI, just as a definition, stands for a type of technology that simulates what people do. And so it's not, any more complicated to that. There's lots of different versions of AI that I talked about on my last presentation. You have an AI toolbox. In the same way that you use a hammer to pound a nail, you don't use a hammer to cut a piece of wood. The same way that you use the right type of AI for the right thing that you're needing to achieve. But AI overall is a type of technology that simulates things that once humans just did. And that started with the idea of playing chess. In 1955, they thought they could train a computer to beat a human at playing chess, and which they did, but it took them 30 more years than what they thought it would take. They thought it would take one summer, and it took 30 years. But we're now at a point where, AI can outperform humans in pretty much most things that are routine based, that are rules based. Anything that's rules based, AI gets very, very good at understanding how to beat a game, because it can play 1,000 games in a fraction of a second by speeding it up, versus a human having to play 1,000 games of chess to get better. So all that to say, nothing magic. There's no, unicorn, or fairy dust that is involved with making AI work. It is just a lot of math. And it learns by understanding how things work and how you win a game of chess versus how you lose a game of chess, and doing that over and over and over again to simulate how a person would do that. This is my public service announcement that AI can be used for good or bad. And responsible AI, which most big companies will talk about, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, they all have responsible AI teams. They talk about responsible AI, how they build AI that's ethical, transparent, accountable. But the nonprofit sector we can't only allow Microsoft and Google and Amazon, the people building AI, to maintain what responsible is. It's responsible according to them. we as the nonprofit sector have to safeguard not only short term, like how are we going to use this tool to help us in the short term, but we have to think about what are the long-term consequences? What are the unintended consequences? The same way that we saw in social media that was intended to bring people together has had unintended consequences of increasing anxiety and depression and teen suicide and things like that, that we as a nonprofit sector have to then address. And so again, it's not enough for us as a sector to only think about responsible AI that's built on ethics, but we have to think about what beneficial AI is as well. The two types of AI, and I know I shared this slide before, but this is 30 seconds to remind you that what I'm going to talk to you about today mostly is generative AI. That's the area that's on the right side of my screen, which is kind of represents the creative side of AI. There are two kind of main areas of AI, kind of left brain, right brain, whereas there's the logical side, which is it's called predictive AI, and that obviously just predicts things. It takes lots of data and it makes predictions. But generative AI is about taking all the information available in the universe and creating something new, and not necessarily something that's never been invented before, but it's a mashup of all the information that has ever existed to create a new concoction. So if if you own a pizza store and you're like, here's all the different ingredients and what could be possibly a good, pizza be that we've never done before, generative AI could look at all the ingredients, say this and this and this might go together. And you're like, oh, so it's not creating new ingredients, but it's creating a new menu item, a new type of pizza that you might have on your menu. So, so anyway, we're going to talk a lot about this creative side of it, because this is really what's going to help you in your role today. The return on investment on AI is not trivial. And it's not just about raising more money. It's not just about, a magic wand to like make your, all your problems go away. Precision and personalization, which I just talked about, but it really is uniformly and 100% about doing your work faster, better, and at the end, leaving you happier. Essentially using AI to do things that you don't like to do and augmenting your work, not replacing your work, but augmenting it so that you are really kind of empowered by having a consultant at your right hand that is, helping you guide your work a little bit more effectively. And I promise you, once you go through this and you start using this more kind of on a day-to-day, you will not want to do another Google search where you have to read through all the results. You're not going to want to plan a vacation on your own and have to like look at all the different websites and make phone calls to find out where you should go. You're going to use this tool to really offload some of the mundane work so that you can do your work better, faster, and end up happier. So there's a few principles that we have to talk about as we continue to go through this. Is this feels overwhelming, so start small. And that's really important. Like you can feel completely overwhelmed, like I don't understand any of this. Like it's just too daunting. I'm going to switch my screen over in 15 minutes and we're going to start small. Like take a website and tell me what this organization does or something like that. Or this is my job. How can I use you to do my work more effectively? So start small. Don't be overwhelmed by all the things that it can do. One and second one is always verify then trust. Is we're going to be talking about generative AI, and I'm going to share my screen in a little bit. I want to make sure that we've all kind of signed at least mental pledge, if not verbal pledge, that we won't put anything confidential in generative AI unless we know for fact we know the security parameters. So that means in fundraising that we don't take donor information and we post it into a platform that we don't know where that information goes. There's very, very safe AI, and there's hospitals that use generative AI in their own platform and it's secure. And their security people have said, look, it's totally fine for you to put confidential information in because we have a closed system. But if you don't know that for a fact, make this pledge that you won't put anything confidential into a tool, because reputational harm doesn't just affect your organization, it affects all nonprofits because we are connected, like all the forest in a tree, all the trees in a forest, we are all connected to one another. And when one does something bad, we all feel the effect. So just make that your own kind of mantra. Be transparent. And that means, have policies or at least guidelines. Fundraising.ai has guidelines as a framework that's free that you can adopt. You can literally take that framework and say, this is now our view of how we view AI in a transparent and authentic way. Always keep humans in the loop, so being authentic. So while we can do things like, say, let's use AI to have bots, AI bots, do all the fundraising for our organization, the technology will allow you to do that. We know that's not in the best interest of our sector and for humanity. So keeping humans in the loop is super important. I think being curious is one of the biggest advantages that we can have as human beings today. AI is not conscious. I don't believe it ever will be conscious. It will resemble consciousness. Like it can act empathetic, but it can't be empathetic. It can act like it cares about you and it can demonstrate words of love to you, but it can't actually love because it's not conscious. Being curious is one of the greatest advantages that we have inherently as humans. And by fact, if an AI cannot be curious. In fact, it would have to be told to be curious, and which kind of negates the idea of being curious to begin with. If I'm told to be curious about how to solve a problem, then am I really curious? And so I really think that as humans, this is a muscle that we need to flex and just be thinking about, well, what if? What if? And just ask the question why a lot, like we used to do when we were kids, and become really annoying to all the people around us. So, that also speaks to the culture of your organization. I believe one of the greatest assets that an organization can have today is a curiosity mindset. And so essentially reward curiosity within your organization, encourage people to ask questions and to wrestle with things that we don't know the answers to. And then the last part is it's frankly a fact, is that today is the worst AI you'll ever use. And, I'm at the forefront of this and I have been for many years. And I am blown away by how fast and how good the technology is advancing. And so, 18 months ago, ChatGPT, that type of AI that we were using 18 months ago was awful. Like it was dumb and horrible compared to what it is today. And I know that in 6 months, the AI that we're using today is going to seem archaic. And so expect more, and that AI is not only just trained by humans now, AI is trained by AI, which is what we call exponential technology. No other technology we've ever encountered as humans is exponential. It's exponential because it actually can train itself. That also means why I spend a lot of time and some sleepless nights talking about the responsible and beneficial use of AI and why our sector has to hold itself to a very high level of accountability. All right. So here's what we get into. I usually do a presentation. I get to the end and people are like, yeah, but how do I log in? Like, what's your favorite tool and what do you use on a day-to-day basis? And so I have a slide that talks about all my favorite tools. I have more, but these are the ones that I tend to use a bit more on a routine basis. I'll just talk about each one of them for a second and what I use them for. Think about AI many ways as like bottled water. So generative AI, you go to a grocery store and there's a whole aisle of bottled water. And I think I shared this analogy last time, but there's some that have blue labels and some that have pink labels and some that have, that were bottled at the source and some that are distilled, some that have some, special flavoring added to them. But what is the number one ingredient to all those bottles of water? It's water. And so at the end of the day, all large language models, which is what generative AI is, are all essentially the same. There's a few breakthroughs that came through. Google actually was credited with these big breakthroughs a couple of years ago, but all AI, all Gen AI essentially works the same. And that means like I might like Aquafina and you might like Fiji or you might Dasani. And that's because you have a taste for it and it serves your purposes better. So ChatGPT is probably the most well-known tool that's super easy to log in. You can have a free account, it gives you a lot of functionality, or you can have a $20 a month account, which gives you more privacy settings. You can have, and GPT is one I use every day. I use ChatGPT as my workhorse, whether I'm planning a vacation or why I want to know why my fingers get wrinkly while I'm in the shower or how I would do a capital campaign. It is just a workhorse and it knows a lot about a lot. Claude, I use when I'm writing something that needs my voice. Claude doesn't get confused with, what war is going on today in the world because it doesn't have access to the internet. Claude is really, really good if you're a writer and you want to have it learn your writing style. It has a very large, it's called a context window. So you can load like books and books so it can learn about, different things, but it also can get to know your voice very well. It's actually a very good writing tool. It's also known as a company to be one of the most responsible AI companies out there. So that, I should use quotes with that because they all have, things that they probably stolen data from someone. OpenAI says, so ChatGPT is OpenAI. They're like, trust us, all of your data is secure. But meanwhile, they're being sued by the New York Times and, YouTube for stealing their data. So I shared this last time. If you're not paying for the product, you are the product. I encourage you, I absolutely encourage you to pay $20 a month for one of these tools, the one that serves you best, because you'll have more privacy settings. Microsoft Copilot is only highlighted here because I'm actually doing a bit more in Copilot. Many of you are on a Microsoft Office suite. So that means you have Microsoft Word and PowerPoint and Excel. Copilot is essentially ChatGPT. So Microsoft owns 50% of OpenAI, which is ChatGPT, and they've embedded ChatGPT into all those platforms. So that could mean like I go into Copilot and I say, hey, draft me an outline for a PowerPoint that I need to do for a board of directors that talks about a new campaign that we want to do. And it can provide it to you in Word. And then you can go into PowerPoint with Copilot and say, hey, look at this Word document and make me all the slides. And it will do it like within seconds. And you'll be like, wow, like that's amazing. I still have to tweak it. I got to still do a lot of work with it, but it will have saved you an hour of time. And that's really where the sufficiency comes in. Again, once you start using these tools. So same thing, Microsoft Excel with Copilot can say, hey, look at all this analysis. We just did our summit last week, 9,500 participants from, people from all over the world. I loaded our registration and I just put it in and I said, hey, how many countries are represented and how many people from each country? Like I would have had to do a lot of like, some, segmentations in Excel to do that and some cleanup and things like that. And Copilot can do that really, really easily. Gemini, if anyone's a Google fan, Gemini is their version. It's their version of ChatGPT or Claude. So if you're a Google fan, you might want to use Gemini. This one's a little different. These last two, Notebook LM is a, sorry. I'm at a hotel and they're probably trying to kick me out right now. Notebook LM is a new tool from Google that was released a week ago that I'm going to share live here in a second. And it's one of the most transformative technologies I've seen. But it can take lots of information, distill it down into a notebook so that you could take several books and notes and audio files and websites. It will crunch them together and then it will create a very short podcast that you can listen to of what all that information represents. So that's the URL for Notebook LM, and it's so easy to use. And the last one is called Perplexity. If you're going to pick one tool to spend $20 a month on, Perplexity might be your key, because Perplexity in it has Claude and it has ChatGPT. It has its own models. It has Gemini. I think it has Gemini. It has like 8 different models embedded. It's kind of like an aggregator of the different bottles of water. So your own little storefront. And if you're like, I just want to spend $20 a month and I don't want to have multiple accounts, I can switch between ChatGPT and Claude, Meta, and use their models. So Perplexity is really, really good. It also is connected to the internet. So you can like ask it like, hey, what's going on in this, conflict around the world or in this election? And, what happened yesterday that I need to know about it. So they do kind of a daily digest as well from that perspective. So how people are using AI, 23% of people right now. These numbers change very quickly. This is from a report that McKinsey Consulting just did. 23% are using content creating. So writing, editing, proofing, all those things, really, really good. You never need to proof another document, I promise you. It will do a far better job than you could do as a human. I know because I wrote a book 18 months ago, 2 weeks before ChatGPT came out. We paid several $1,000s to an editor and a proofer, specifically just a proofer. And I know that we have 3 typos in our book. that we would have zero of if we had ChatGPT. It would have found them instantly, and would have not cost any money. So tech assistance, troubleshooting, like, hey, my computer is doing this weird thing. Take a screenshot of it. What does this mean? And have it tell me, like, what settings do I need to go into to fix this? Really good at troubleshooting, not just computers, but like, hey, my water heater is making a weird sound, or it's not getting hot. What are the possible solutions to this? So serving as essentially what you would normally do is Google all these different things and try to figure out what's real and what's not real and what's sponsored and not sponsored, that you can really get to the heart of issues very quickly. Personal and professional support. This goes into everything from mental health counseling, which generative AI is very, very good at, helping people to quit smoking. In fact, it's in a new report, generative AI is 87% more likely to convince you to take its point of view than a human, because it knows everything about human psychology, not just what one psychologist went to school for. And so obviously lots of pros there, lots of things to be wary of there as well. But personal and professional support, they'd be like, hey, planning a vacation to Hong Kong. You've never been there before. I like to do these things. What are the things I should do? And those are absolutely huge benefits. Save you a lot of time. Learning and education, I'll talk more about that in a little bit, just distilling lots of information. What do I need to know? If I read a 400-page book, I'm going to remember 3 things about it. So what if it just told me what those 3 things are and I didn't need to read the book? I mean, if you like to read, that sounds horrible. If you don't like to read, that sounds amazing. So I'm probably more on the don't like to read. So I'm convinced, and I'm writing a second book right now that I'm convinced no one will read. Just put it into ChatGPT and distill it. Hobbies and recreation, research analysis, and decision making. This is one of the most underutilized but hugest advantages of generative AI right now, is to say, hey, I've got a lot of data. I did a donor survey, or I've got a bunch of numbers on a spreadsheet that I don't know what to do with. If I load that into Claude or Perplexity or ChatGPT, it can provide me insight into the data very, very quickly. And, going back to verify then trust, make sure that the information is correct. Don't just copy and paste it. But looking at it, it is going to save so much time. I will bet anything that in the next year or so, this will not be 10%. This will be a quarter of the use cases of people using generative AI will be around, how do I distill all this information and make sense of it? In fact, I'm probably going to show an example of this. You can have a report with a lot of data in it and say, hey, create me a graph of that data, and it will do that really well. Actually, we just did this for a report I'll share with you. How nonprofits are using it, very similar. Predicting donor behavior, content creation, grant writing, reviewing grants, enhancing the donor experience, and really supporting the donor relation function. Prospect research and bios, like, I have way too much information, way too many prospects. Can you, search the internet and help me, create a dossier for this individual that I'm going to be meeting with? Again, verify then trust, because it won't be 100% accurate. But just so you know, humans aren't 100% accurate either. We like to think we are, but we're not. And so verify then trust. One of, I think, a really, really exciting use case, a friend of mine is building a company on this right now on role playing. So going to a chat GPT and say, hey, take the persona of a cantankerous donor, not telling it any information, no confidential information, a cantankerous donor that tends to make their giving decisions based on how it impacts their grandkids or the environment or whatever it might be, and have it ask you the questions. So role playing with this before. A new tool will be coming out from a friend of mine, Mallory Erickson, that actually will be a voice bot that you can engage with and actually have these personas based on all of her work in fundraising. Communications, persona development, and again, data analysis and sentiment analysis. There's lots of ways to work with AI, and I'm going to share with you a couple in a second, but this just speaks to this idea that you can work with AI not just in text form. So I'm not only going to be able to just type into my computer, like I Google search and say, give me a website with all that information, but I can speak to my phone and it can speak back to me, or it can type back to me. I can type to my phone, or it can speak back to me. So ChatGPT and most of them have voice mode, and so you can actually have a conversation. And their new advanced voice mode, which came out 2 weeks ago, is insanely lifelike, if you will. I had a conversation with it this morning, as I was just thinking through. And so all this to say, when you hear the term multimodal, it means multiple modes. So speaking to it, having to speak to you, and so on. I can also take an image and say, hey, here's a plant that I don't know what it is. I'm on a walk. Like, can you identify this plant? And it might say, well, what region of the world are you in? And then it's like, oh, well, based on that information, it's most likely this. Um, for one of my favorite use cases, I've heard this a lot from nonprofits, is we have a bunch of an auction basket, and no one really wakes up in the morning thinking, I can't wait, today's the best day in the world because I can write all the descriptions for our auction baskets. I've never met that person, and if you are that person, I feel sorry for you because ChatGPT is going to replace your job. But if you're a professional auction basket writer, your job might be replaced. But in lieu of that, what you could do is actually take a picture of the auction basket or lay all the items out on a table. It can identify the items, and it can actually write you a lovely description that will take you 1 minute instead of 30 minutes. So again, time. It can translate voice into different languages. So I can hold my phone out and say, hey, I'm going to be speaking in English, and the person I'm going to be speaking to will be speaking in French. So every time you hear English, translate it to French, and every time you hear French, translate it to English. And this works in now about 120 languages. So we have a long ways to go with all the languages in the world, but about 120 languages serves as like a really, really quick boost. But also for nonprofits that say maybe you serve, 80% of your constituents speak English, but 30% or 20% speak Spanish. It doesn't mean that those 20% are not important, but it's been very cost prohibitive to translate your materials into Spanish. That cost is now almost nothing, and you don't have to rely on a human translator that's very expensive and sometimes unreliable. That the translation capabilities are amazing. So that means that you can serve your constituencies far better. And then again, data analysis, which is again my favorite, but I'm also a nerd, so that's probably why I gravitate to that. So there's a couple quick tips, and these are ones to screenshot, to write down. All the AI gurus in the world have their different acronyms for what they believe, like how do you extract the most out of AI? But these are really what I think the top 5. So when we're going to talk about this in a second, provide it an identity. That means if I'm going to use ChatGPT, I usually would say, hey, take the persona as my travel advisor, and then give me this advice, or take the persona of my lawyer, or take the persona of a fundraising coach or a campaign consultant. What it does is it actually sets the model up for success to say, okay, I know what you're looking for now. And when you tell it me, if you give me these specific tasks, I know what identity to use. I know what hat I'm putting on, essentially. So it's really, you don't have to do this, but it does help in kind of shortcutting the generative AI to be like, okay, I know what you're looking for. I want you to take, I know you want me to take the role as a fundraising advisor, and you're going to give me these tasks. So tell me specifically the tasks and goals. I want you to create a feasibility study, and I want it to have 10 questions that are going to be provocative or insightful for my constituents or my stakeholders to think about, fundraising. Provide it criteria. So when I said 10, give me 10, or give me 3, or summarize this in 30 seconds or in a 1 paragraph. So provide it criteria. Otherwise, you'll get a very generic kind of routine answer, say 20 questions, and you're only looking for 3. And then the last is not needed, but helpful, is to feed it examples and say, you know what, here's a couple of examples of the types of questions that I want to ask. And it will further fine tune and understand, again, that context of what you're looking for. Not to say that you'll get the perfect answer, and you won't get the perfect answer, but then where it's very different than software, where you get a response and you get, say, 10 questions to ask in a feasibility study or a donor survey, is you can say, well, you know what, those all stink. I don't even know what you were thinking. Why don't you start over and iterate? Or, you know what, I like questions 1, 3, and 5. Come up with another 7 that look more like that. So this point of iteration is clearly different than how we operate with software normally, where it's like right or wrong. There is no right or wrong, it's iterative. And so just have this as an ongoing conversation. If it helps for you to imagine a person sitting across your desk, and that person took the persona as your fundraising coach, then you're having a conversation with that person. What they give you, their answer the first time, is not the perfect answer. It's a conversation, it's iterative. And so think about it that exact same way. And that's what's called the AI mindset. The AI mindset is where you stop looking at it like a screen that's one dimensional, but you think about it in this context of an iterative conversation. That's truly where the magic of generative AI really comes from. So this is a really, really good place to start. And I hear this all the time. I do a lot of these presentations and people say, well, I'm a so-and-so person at a nonprofit. Like, what are the ways that AI can help me? Or I don't even think AI can help me. The number one place to start is to go into ChatGPT and say, I'm a prospect researcher, I'm a fundraiser, I'm a donor relations person, I'm a chief development officer. What are three ways that you can help me in my role? What are three ways AI can help me in my role? So that is literally, if you've never logged in, and I know there's someone who admitted that they've never logged in. She knows who I'm talking about. This will be her prompt today to say, what are the ways that you can help me do my job? And it won't be perfect, but it will be the start of an iterative conversation that you'll have, and I think you'll be impressed. And just again, to unlock that AI mindset, things like help me summarize this book in 3 sentences, or as a blog post, or as a report, or as a LinkedIn post. Um, if I loaded a book, what did the author miss? Like, what were the things that I should have expected in this book that wasn't there? Or my role is X, how does it apply to me? What questions? And this goes back again, being an author. If you want to sound really smart going to a dinner party, load someone's book in there and say, what are the questions that I should ask the author? And insightful questions. And if you use the word provocative, it actually digs deep and be like, what are the really esoteric or philosophical questions? Um, or things like, give me X number of steps to build radical connections. So that comes from my book, The Generosity Crisis. Here's a little homework for you. So this is, you don't have to do this right now. I think I shared this last time. If you want a free copy, a PDF of my book, I don't encourage you to read it. I'm giving you a PDF for free, so you don't have to read it, in fact. And so if you download this, you will essentially be able to have it as a PDF on your desktop. And when I go into ChatGPT in a second, you're going to see how you can load it, and you can then have a conversation with it instead of reading, several hundred pages that are going to make you really depressed about our profession. So I'll put this on at the end as well. Okay, so I think I'm going to just get into a few tips on leveraging. We've got 20 minutes left, and we're just going to do a couple live demos. Again, I don't do this very often, so it's likely that we'll have bugs and weird things happen, but we're just going to power through regardless. All right, I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and I'm going to start sharing my browser. And this is going to get fun. All right. So in my browser, I have a couple things already open. I've got Microsoft Copilot. This is for a session that I'm going to be doing in a few minutes. I've got a report here that I just wrote with a friend of mine, AI and donor perceptions in healthcare philanthropy. So we interviewed in a report that we just did 1,000 donors in their perception of how nonprofits use AI. And we just created a new one specific to healthcare donors. I've got Lutheran Services website up here, so I'll show you why I have that in a second. BC Children's Hospital, because I'm going there right after this session. Notebook LM, which I just shared with you, and I'm going to show you a real quick example of, and then ChatGPT. So again, you already have the URL, so chatgpt.com. Why don't we just start here? In fact, I'm going to take Lutheran Services website. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go to ChatGPT, and I'm going to say, hey there, what this organization, and I'm a horrible typer, does. Dot, dot, dot. If I want to, I'm going to hit shift return. Most people know this trick, but if I hit return, it's just going to say, what organization are you talking about? And I'm going to paste Lutheran Services there. I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to search the web. It's browsing lutheranservices.org, and it's going to come up with some, kind of little caption. And I could say, okay, cool. I don't know. Is there a good question I should ask either Kim or Debbie that I should, that question that you get often? Do they serve people other religions? I don't know if you ever get that question.
Yeah, we do.
Okay. Yes, Lutheran Services America serves people from all backgrounds. Um, I don't know what else I could ask it. Would I make a donation? Let's see if it knows this. Because there was navigate donate section. They provide options for giving online. They also accept donations via email. So
Are
again,
you,
what?
are,
Go ahead.
the other question is, are you like Catholic Charities?
Oh, okay. And that will be good because it's going to have to understand what Catholic Charities is. They're similar in that both are faith-based organizations providing social services to people in need, regardless. Give me 5 bullets of each what they do. So hopefully you're seeing, the not only like the power of this, all the information at the internet, how quick it is, but also just from a time saving perspective. If I was to do this, I mean, that's a great example, Debbie, because if I would have done this, I would have had to go into Lutheran Services. Somehow I'd have to read through all the, stuff on all the different pages of the website to come up with the 5 bullet points. I'd have to do the same thing in Catholic charities and then compile them back together. Right. So like that process, I mean, this is a very, very simple example, but you can have very complex examples. I mean, kind of those unsolvable questions that are so hard because you have to affiliate all this different information together can do this really, really quickly. So this is ChatGPT. Again, this is my total workhorse. Like, this morning I asked it, what do you think about Jeffrey Hinton winning the Nobel. Oops. This. Oops. Well, let's see. Even with typos. So Jeffrey Hinton, if you don't know, he was just announced as winning the Nobel Prize for his work in neural networks. It's very interesting because he is the reason why we have this type of technology, but he's become the most outspoken person about why this technology has to be used responsibly. I think he would be excited. I don't know if, and here's the thing, you can ask it to have an opinion. He might have mixed emotions. On one hand, he could feel a sense of accomplishment, recognition of groundbreaking AI that undoubtedly shaped the field. However, given recent concerns about the potential misuse of AI and long-term risks of humanity. So this is again ChatGPT. Over here, there's going to be a log of all of my chats. I can create chats that don't record my log. So they're called temporary chats. So if I go here to create a new one, I can select which model I want to use. And I'm using their top one right here. It's called GPT-4o. It's great for most tasks. It says it right there. GPT-4o with Canvas. It's about more for coding, writing and coding. It's brand new. It's a little funky. O1 Preview is for advanced reasoning. O1 Mini. I'm not going to go into all these because this is for you. Like, play around with it, understand, figure out which one you like the best. And I could create a temporary chat. So if I create a temporary chat, it brings me a new window. Whatever I type in here will not be recorded. It won't be sent. It won't be received. It will vanish after I use it. So what is the best month to go to Florida? I guess that's might not be a good example today, but it's probably not October. Fewer crowds late November and December. It's great. So this temporary chat will not be kept over here on this space. So it's just called temporary chat. Okay. So hopefully that helps you with ChatGPT and get you over that hump. If you're going to pick one to just play with, it's a really good one. Copilot is the same thing. So Microsoft Copilot, if you're a Microsoft Office, you probably already have Copilot, and it's just copilot.microsoft.com. Not surprising, it works almost the same way. Typically when you log in for the first time, it'll say, hey, give me a voice. Like, who do you want me to sound like? And it'll give you, I think, 2 male and 2 female voices, and you can pick which one you like best. And some people learn better from different voice styles. So pick one that you feel like, I mean, we've all done this with Siri, and, some people don't use the default Siri because you learn better from a different type of voice. So this is a prompt I typed a little bit ago because I'm here with the Canadian Children's Hospital. I'm working with a Canadian nonprofit children's hospital. Provide me some prompts that I can use to show them the power of generative AI, help them with fundraising. So again, I don't know what this will do, but it's going to actually give me prompts. So a prompt is the thing I just typed in. And so it's like, absolutely, here's some prompts to share and highlight the power of generative AI in transforming the fundraising efforts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's got all these. I can go back here and say, oh, okay, and I can retype any of these, or I could say, I like number 7. And it will remember what number 7 is. And absolutely, AI-powered chatbot is a game changer for donor engagement. Here's how. And so we can just continue to have this iterative conversation. And you're like, well, wait, I actually meant number 2, and I don't remember what number 2 was. Um, let's go back. Got it. Engaging in social media campaigns can be incredibly powerful for fundraising. So again, illustrating the iterative nature of all this. So, all right. So that's Microsoft Copilot, ChatGPT. If I went into Claude, which I can, actually don't have Claude in here. I could go into Perplexity, and Perplexity looks very similar. Oh, no, don't want to do that. I can't see my whole screen. Here we go. I can say, what's going on in the world today? And it's going to show you. The nice thing about Perplexity is actually going to show you all of its sources. And when it gives you information, it will actually create a footnote, like a reference link to every single thing it gives you. Middle East tensions escalate, natural disaster and climate events, political developments. There's a lot going on in the world today, by the way. Geez, thanks for being here with me. Humanitarian crises, like this is like, there's a lot of heavy stuff. I can click on any of these little footnotes and it can bring me to the exact source. That's super, super helpful. So if you have a job where accuracy matters, Perplexity is a great tool. And by the way, I could go back to ChatGPT and I could ask it, give me sources for this information. So, because it gave me about, what the best days were to go to Florida, and it's going to give me the actual sources. I'll say this one is from Round Trip, Travel and Leisure, Wandering Educators, Florida Trippers. So this is, again, not making up new information. It's just compiling all the information that has access. The equivalent would be, I'd run that straight question in a Google search. It would give me 22,000 clickbait websites that I'd have to click on knowing, well, TripAdvisor is always going to try to sell me on buying airfare or a rental car, and I'm going to have to do this and this. This is just taking all that information. This took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different websites, compiled those 6 websites into 2 paragraphs. And huge, huge time saver. All right. So one other thing I just want to share with you with this, because it's just crazy cool. Notebook LM, I shared a little bit. It's only been out for a week. I can take Lutheran Services website, which I just did. I can create a notebook. I can choose the type of information I want to put in my notebook. Actually, wait. It can be a Google Doc because this is owned by Google. Doc or a slide. It can be a website or a YouTube video. So that's pretty impressive because it actually can source all the transcript from the YouTube video and put it in summary for you. Or I can copy and paste text. So I'm going to do a website, and this is Lutheran Services. And I'm going to load this here. I can have up to 50 different sources. So I can, in just about Lutheran Services, if you guys have a case for support, if you have donor appeals, if you've got video transcripts from things that you've done where you've talked about Lutheran Services in the public, it can load all these together. And this overview is going to be dynamic. It's going to provide a summary. And then it's going to be interactive. So I can say, well, some suggested questions might be, what are the key areas Lutheran Services, operates in? But the coolest part is I can generate a podcast from this information. And this is like kind of mystery moment. It's actually might take a little too long for this. It can take like 2 minutes or it can take about 5 minutes. But at the end of the day, I can show you one that I just did. I did like 5 of them in my pajamas this weekend. So my book, The Generosity Crisis, I loaded my book, and I loaded a couple things that I wrote on LinkedIn. So it's my book right here, GC Full. This is, I know, our website. This is a slide deck that I have overcoming the competition for connection. And then I pasted some text here and I hit notebook there and it created a podcast. And it's a 10-minute, 35-second podcast that I could download. And hopefully this will play. It did when we were testing this out. I'll just play just the 30 seconds of it.
Hey everyone, excited to be kicking off our deep dive today into something really important, the future of generosity right here in America.
Yeah, it's a big one.
And we've got some fascinating sources to dig into. We've got excerpts from this book, The Generosity Crisis, plus an interview with philanthropy experts Nathan Chappell and Brian Crimmins.
Should be interesting to see what they have to say.
You often hear that charitable giving is down, and this deep dive is really going to help us understand why.
Yeah, I'm curious to get past the headlines, get into the nuances a bit.
Absolutely. And this book, The Generosity Crisis, it actually starts with this story about a young couple, Tony and Carmen. They get these like totally impersonal donation requests from their alma mater asking for money. But here's the thing. It's for a program they weren't even involved in.
I've been there. It's like, do you even know me?
Exactly. And it feels like.
Okay, so how many of you, the hair just went up on your neck to realize that neither of those voices are actually human, that only in 5 minutes in 4 documents, it created a 10-minute overview that I guarantee is better overview than any, and I've done hundreds of presentations on my book, better than anyone I've ever done. So the way we are going to learn is going to change dramatically, but the accessibility that you have to take lots of information about your organization or organization you want to work with and distill it down so you can listen to it on your drive into the office or to the grocery store, it is profound. One of my biggest things with this is showing, again, it's very easy to get overwhelmed by this technology. And we're putting a lot of faith in humanity. But so while we need to use this technology to help support our mission, because it's incumbent upon us to do that, we need to use it in ways that are going to be productive. It is amazing, amazing technology. It also, for me, I think the biggest aspect of this is that ChatGPT came out 20 months ago. And it was archaic compared to what it is today. So in 20 months, we went from that of say, write a poem about my dog having a picnic on the moon or a haiku about my bowling team to 20 months later to having that same technology, that same type of bottled water, be able to move this far forward. It is absolutely impressive. This will move to video in the next year where you can actually, for your nonprofit, say, here's our website, here's a little more information about us, create a video that we could put online that tells a story about why people should donate to us. And to be able to do that with little human intervention is pretty profound. So that probably maybe a good way or bad way to leave this conversation. I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone wants to come off and answer any questions. I wanted to just give you a glimpse of some of the technologies that are out there. I'm hoping that you experiment and play with them. It is so much fun. And I will tell you, like, I do my work better, faster, and I'm happier because of it. I also am very responsible in how I use it. And I make sure that part of my responsibility is sharing with others that use this information, use this technology to amplify your mission, but do it in a way that mitigates risk. Use it in a way that's ethical and responsible. Use it in a way that protects and promotes trust within our sector. Anyone have any questions?
Like Karen has one.
Sure.
My question is around Grammarly. Grammarly has, is that chat GP as well?
Yeah, yeah. Grammarly is probably one of the most well-known versions of generative AI, with people don't even know that it is generative AI. So it's been
Mhm.
around for quite a while. Same way, like, yeah, human editors are great, but they take time and they're kind of expensive, and maybe you don't have access to one.
Mhm.
Grammarly, does that for you. So it's exact same technology. It's just a
Okay.
different flavor of bottled water. And the same as Canva. I hope many of your organizations are using Canva. Canva takes the need of hiring a graphic designer and just putting it in your hands. And it's like, hey, this color scheme might go well with your website. And let's add some pizzazz to it. And so Canva, very similar as well. Grammarly and Canva are probably the two most used practical applications. Was there anyone that hasn't been using AI at all that might be, willing to go on today and try something out? I'm making fun of Debbie. Debbie is going to do it today. She already promised me. Uh,
Yes. Yes, I love it. One of the things that I'm thinking about is in that podcast that you played, I said, do they even know me? Does this organization even know me? And I think as development officers and development efforts, we spend a lot of time, crafting a message that really isn't just compelling, right? But that's also tailored to who we're talking about and that's reflective of their investment in our mission thus far. Can you give us some examples of like ways that we can use, AI to prepare for meetings with donors? I will tell you, as somebody who isn't using it, I'm hesitant, right, to put a donor name into it, right, and is that crossing the boundary or not? Like I am actually very much at the beginning, so I'd love to hear your insight
yeah.
for those of us who are at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good way to end. We operate in the currency of trust. The nonprofit sector doesn't sell products or services. We operate in the currency of trust. Therefore, we have to promote and protect trust above all, right? That's our number one responsibility of using any tool, not just AI, but in how we store our data in our CRMs and making sure they're private and secure. So that means that if you don't know if where the data is going, then you should not put anything confidential in. But if you source the internet for, say, you go into ChatGPT and say, hey, give me a bio about this person. And that's how prospect researchers do, right? I've managed them my whole career, and they go on the internet and other sources of publicly available data, and they compile a dossier about an individual. So if you're able to source that information online, therefore it is not private. But if you took your own private information, because say you wrote a contact report and you're like, well, they'll do anything for their dog, and all you have to do is mention, squiggles, in a meeting, and they're like putty in your arms. That would be something that would be highly sensitive and private to you. So do not put in anything that would be proprietary to your organization in a ChatGPT. But if it's public and you have it source public information, then say, hey, so compile this dossier for me. And then say, hey, I'm going to be meeting with this person. What are 3 or 4 possible questions I could ask them? What are the possible questions they might ask me? And so, based on the information that's available, it'll give you some things to think about. And a year from now, we'll have much better tools that will help you role play in real time with different personas of fundraisers. But right now, you could have a conversation. Take the persona of a cantankerous donor who only makes decisions based on ROI. What questions would they ask? I'm going to ask them for, X number of dollars. What questions might they ask me? And then just don't take it verbatim. Have a conversation. Well, tell me more why they would ask that question. Or what's another question? I don't like those questions. What are some other questions? So again, it's just again, having it take the persona of, say, a fundraising coach. It'll do a very good job of guiding you through that conversation.
Thank you, Nathan. This is just outstanding. My mind is blown, and I will make good on my promise. I will go use Copilot. That's
I'm going to follow up.
yes.
'Cause
Oh,
I guarantee you're going to come back and be like, how did I wait that long? It's amazing, and it's saving me so much time. And here's the thing. If we all think, and this is a good closing statement, if we use this tool, I've never met a nonprofit professional that couldn't use more time to do more human-centric things. The dividend of time, right? So it is precious. If you could save 20% of your work week by offloading junk work that you really don't like to do anyway, the 20% of your time to get you to do this thing a little bit faster, that's 1 day a week. If you could apply that dividend of time of 1 day a week, I mean, what would you do with that? Like, could you literally just connect with people in deep and visceral ways? Could you just call people that you just didn't have time to because I was editing and proofing letters all week or whatever it might be? If you could apply that dividend of time, not to do just more work, but better work, that would be profound for your organization, especially when you apply that to anyone in your organization. So I leave you with that because I think that's a really powerful place to be thinking about.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Well,
Safe travels home, and Kim Roke will be following up with all of you with recording of this webinar, as well as more information on the links that you shared. Thank you very much.
awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Take care. Thanks for all your hard work.
Thank you. Bye-bye.